Rabbi Isai, welcome back to Yerushalmi Orlah. We are holding at Kaf Hayam Aleph. Now we're up to Perik Sheni Halach Daled. I just want to say that the last thing we spoke about yesterday was whether Isurin are revitalized. That on the one hand they may get nullified, but when more Isur falls in, we might say Chayzer V'Ne'er, it's reawoken and adds to the original Isur that fell in. So there's a whole discussion in the Rishonim about this. The Raavad holds once an Isur falls in, even if more falls in, it doesn't wake up again. We say no, it's nullified. It brings riots from Mishnah on top base, whatever it is. Other Rishonim argue. They say Agmara seems to say an Isur falls in a mixture, it can reawaken with another Isur that falls later on. So that some push away their raya by saying it's with truma we say this idea, because when truma falls in, you've got to separate amounts of truma that fell in the mixture, right? That's why chayzer v'ne'er, because there's still an element of it there, you have to separate it, as opposed to other isurim. Okay, we're starting Perek Sheni Halach Daled, yeah? So we spoke about a dough, which has a sourdough of isur falling in. Now, what about a dough where a sourdough, permitted sourdough, is also fallen in, and a forbidden sourdough? So there's two cases here. Let's see the first case. So chulin, so you've got a sourdough of chulin, which fell into a dough of chulin, but yesh by chametz, and that's got enough potency to raise this dough, to ferment this dough. V'achach nafal sa'al shel truma. And then a forbidden sourdough fell in. But yesh by kedei lachametz, and that also has enough power in it to ferment the dough. So first the heter sourdough fell in, and then the forbidden one. Also, you mustn't eat the dough because the forbidden sourdough also caused its yeasting, its growing, its fermenting, right? At the end of the day, the sourdough, the forbidden one, also caused the fermenting. And since that taste, the Isur is noticeable in the dough, it's not botel, even if you have a shear to nullify it. Okay? Now, although this dough would have fermented without the sourdough, because there was already a heter there, nevertheless, you can taste the Isur, you can taste the improvement of the forbidden one as well. It will hurry up to ferment and so on. Okay? So that's the first case. Next one. Sa'ar shel chulin shenafal l'tachisa v'chimsa. Chulin sourdough fell into a chulin dough v'chimsa, and it caused it to ferment. V'achkach nafal sa'ar shel truma or sa'ar shel klai karem, and then afterwards, right, the truma sourdough fell in. V'yesh by kedei lachametz, and that also has a power to ferment this dough, and it continued. Also, you mustn't eat the dough. Shimon matir. Shimon allows it. So let's remind ourselves of the two cases. The first case, the sourdough of chulin fell in, and then afterwards the truma one fell in, and that also has the power of chametz. Okay, you can't eat the dough. We will see. We'll discuss it. Right. So one second, there the sourdough of chulin fell in, and the truma, they are very similar. Yeah, and then the truma fell in. The second case, why not? Let's see. The sourdough of chulin fell in. Yeah. This is it. This is the difference. Bechimsa. You see, in the first case, the sourdough chulin fell in. It's not done anything yet. Yeah. But it's got the power to do things. It's not fermented it yet. Yeah. And then the truma falls in. Yeah. Then you mustn't eat the dough. In the second case, the chulin one falls in, and bechimsa. It causes it to rise. Yeah. Yeah, in the first case, it had the power to cause it to rise, but it hadn't actually started the job yet. Here, as soon as it falls in, and v'chimsa, it carried out its process, it caused it to rise. So afterwards, after the fermenting has happened, then the truma one falls in, but that's also got power, but it's come too late. The fermenting's already been done. Also, now the Tanna Kama say you still can't eat it, but Rav Shimon matir, Rav Shimon allows this case. So the Mishnah brought with Shimon, he allows the dough that fell in, the truma klai karem, after it's already fermented through the chulin one. Now what about the first situation, where the forbidden one fell, while the first one had not yet done its job of fermenting? Shimon argues, even in the first case, even in that case, Shimon will allow the dough. Now, even though that the sourdough of the Truma, the Chaim caused both of them, and the Truma and the Chaim, he will allow even in the first case as well. Rav Yonah said, he says, no. I think Rav Shimon will only allow the second case, but not the first case. He won't allow that because the dough improved also from the power of the Truma. I've been sovereign Meva. We wanted to say, Ma Pelikin, where they arguing, well, let's say the first sourdough had all its work cut out and it used all its energy. And the second one also used all its energy. And the sourdough of Chulin fell in first. So since the sourdough of Chulin did it completely, it fermented the whole thing before the other one fell in. That's why Shimon allows it. If Truma fell in Techila first, and that completely fermented it before the sour of Chulin fell into it, then I'm afraid the sourdough is already fermented through the Isur one, and therefore it will be forbidden even according to the view of Rav Shimon. Yes, if the Truma falls in first, before Chulin, and that already has its effect, then I'm afraid it's too late and Rav Shimon will not allow it. Now, the way Rav Yonah explains, then the Gemara actually brings an argument Tanaim about things that give a bad taste in a permitted food. Let's see. Kol Noisnei Tamim, any Isur that gives a taste in a Heta food, Bein Livgam, whether it's a bad taste, Bein Lishvach, or it's a good taste, also the food is forbidden. Divrei Rav Meir. So Rav Meir holds any Isur giving any taste is forbidden. Rav Shimon says, Lishvach, if it improves the taste, also, then the food is forbidden. But Livgam, if it's a bad taste, mutter, then it's permitted. So now we bring an argument. Why are they arguing Rav Meir and Rav Shimon here? Let's see. Rav Shimon Lakish Shama. So Rav Shimon Lakish says, look, what are they arguing? Ma Peligin, why are they arguing here? B'shehishbiach v'ach kach pagam. So first, the Isur improved the Heta, it improved it for a while, and then it ruined it. You hear that? They're arguing what's the din. It improved it a bit and then ruined it. If first it blemished it and then improved it, you hear that? If first it blemished it and then improved it. He gives an example like Truma vinegar falling into hot beans. First it ruins the taste, but after they cool down, then they improve their taste. So there we are. So if it ruined first and then improved, Rav Meir will agree that if the blemish started first, the food is permitted. That's the way Rish Lakish learns. Rav Yochanan, he says no. There's no difference whether it improved to start with the food, and then after that it ruined it, or or first it ruined it and then afterwards it improved it. In all the situations, here machlokes, that is the argument between Rav Meir and Rav Shimon, whether the food is forbidden or not. So who holds what? Rav Meir holds it's forbidden. Rav Shimon holds it may be permitted, depending if it's lishvach or whatever it is. Yeah. Now the Gemara brings a Mishnah where the explanation of it depends on the argument of Yochanan and Rish Lakish. Let's see. Taman Tanina. So we've learnt in the Mishnah in Trumas. So Iron, you got barley of Truma which falls into a vat of water. Even though the water has got a bit bad now because of the barley, Meimav Mutarin, the water is permitted. Right, it was Truma barley that fell into water, the water is permitted. Now, who is the Tanu who learned this Mishnah? Who is this Mishnah that allows a food where an Isur gave a bad taste from the beginning? Who is it? So it depends on the argument of Rav Yochanan and Rish Lakish. Rav Yochanan, he said the situation the Mishnah is talking about is machlokes, is an argument between Rav Meir and Rav Shimon. Rav Meir forbids a food where even if it gives a bad taste, and he will forbid this case, the water, even though the barley blemished it all the way along, he will forbid it. Rav Shimon, who allows a food which has a blemish, he will allow it. So according to Rav Yochanan says, look, Rav Meir will forbid this, Rav Shimon will allow it. Rav Shimon Lakish, he said, no, everyone will allow this. Everyone will allow this, because there's a blemish from beginning to end. Yeah? It's blemishing from the beginning. So Rav Meir will also agree that the water is permitted. Right? Because it's blemish from beginning to end. Now we're going to bring another pshat. Slightly different explanation. Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Bunama, he said, Ilen Shmuasa Hada, these two ways explaining the Mishnah in Trumas based on Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish, this is really how they clearly learn them. This is how they explain them. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Rabbi Yochanan said Zumbach Laikas is an argument from Meir and Rav Shimon. Okay, you're putting the Mishnah in Trumas there, okay, where the barley fell in the water. He says it's machlekes. Rabbi Yochanan holds it's machlekes, which we said before. Rabbi Yochanan Amar b'machlekes. So this is the way to learn. Rabbi Yochanan Amar b'machlekes, and Rav Shimon ben Lakish Amar. Rav Shimon ben Lakish said divrei hakol. Yeah, that's according to everyone. The Mishnah, everyone will agree to this. So it's slightly different wording, and the Mishnah therefore allows the water, and it's according to this version. Rishon ben Lakish said divrei hakol that everyone will allow it. So the Mishnah is allowing the water is according to Rav Shimon. Now that's according to Rabbi Yossi Bibun's version. It will be Rav Shimon. According to Rav Yochanan's version is an argument. Okay, it will be Rav Shimon. And according to Rish Lakish, everyone. Okay. Now Rabbi Yaina looks at the words of Rish Lakish to explain the argument of Meir and Rav Shimon. Rabbi Yaina. Rabbi Yaina said, Tzurcha lahadad Rish Lakish. You know something? I need to really look into Rish Lakish here. Right? Let's remind ourselves what he said. Rish Lakish, Rish Shimon Lakish said divrei hakol, according to Rabbi Yochanan's version. Rish Lakish said divrei hakol, that the barley, everyone will agree it's okay. You know, it's blemished from the beginning. So let's see now. So, I think I need to look into the words of Rish Lakish. It's not so straightforward. Because didn't we not think to say, Ma Peligin, when is the Tanakama and Rishimon arguing? Is b'shechimetz zeh kol koche, where the permitted one caused all the fermenting, v'zeh, and the forbidden one, kol koche, all its efforts, v'nafas ashal chulin techila, and the sourdough of chulin fell in first, and according to the Tanakama, the Issa is forbidden, and according to Rav Shimon, he holds is permitted, because the truma just gave a bad taste. It came too late. The truma fell in too late, right? The heta one had already caused all the fermenting. So the truma one just gave a bad taste later on. So that's why, according to Rav Shimon, the chulin will be fine. If the truma falls in first, then he says, I'm afraid the heta one can't do any good afterwards. I'm afraid the dough is already leavened, and it remains forbidden, even according to Shimon, even if the chulin one falls in later. Based on this, according to the Tanakama, which is Rameya, our fifth, then Rameya's version would be, even if the chulin fell in first and fermented it, and the truma one came later and blemished it, and it carried on fermenting more than it was fitting, it will be like the truma one improved the taste of the dough first and then ruined it. And just like Rameya forbids that dough in that situation, he will also forbid when the sourdough of truma gave a bad taste. It just came a bit later on and gave a bad taste. And these words go against Rish Lakish. He said even Rameya would allow a food when the Issa from the beginning gave a bad taste. Because that's what's happening here. The heta started, and it sounds like according to Rameya, the heta started, did all the fermenting. The truma came along, it was too late then. Whatever fermenting it does then is just ruining it. And yet it will be forbidden. So you see, and that is like a case of blemish from the beginning. As soon as the truma gets here, it ruins it. So it's like a case of blemishing from the beginning. And it seems to be there's still a problem. Hazar Rabbi Yaina went back and said, Ha'isha hazais. So this woman who's kneading this dough, you know what? She doesn't really put in enough sourdough in the beginning. When she put the permitted sourdough to start with, she didn't put enough. She needed to come onto the truma one later on. And therefore it's not an immediate blemish. It's actually improving things to start with. She leaves a tiny bit that it shouldn't ferment straight away. Therefore, in our situation, I say kosher, that tiny bit that's still needed after the heta sourdough has been used is needed to make up the fermentation process. That's done through the truma that falls later on. Therefore it's treated the sourdough of truma because it's needed. It's like it improved the dough to start with, and later on ruined it. And that's why Rameh is strict in this case. If, however, the Issa came and it was pagam, it was blemished from the beginning, then Rameh would agree the food is permitted, as the way Rish Lakish explained. You follow? So in this situation, the heta sourdough wasn't enough. You needed the truma sourdough to make up a bit. Now, Vakashya, he says, but I still got a problem. Ilu ishbiach. You think, look, if the sourdough of truma, yes, it improved that dough with that tiny percentage, v'loi pogam, and it wouldn't have blemished it. Shema klumhu. I mean, is it worth anything? Is it considered anything? It's hardly anything. What's it worth? It must be, in the case of the Mishnah, the sourdough of truma, it finished. It must have finished the chimutz, the remaining fermentation that was needed. It must have done more. It must have fermented the dough more than was fitting. And the reason the Tanna Kama that forbids the dough is because of that blemish of the truma which came later on. So he wants to say this goes against the Bir of Rish Lakish. Rish Lakish Rameh is not strict in a case where it gives the pagam from the beginning. He wants to say it seems to imply here excuse me, that there is a blemish from the beginning and still it's forbidden. Okay, you with me? Mm-hmm. So it's a very good question he's asking on Rish Lakish. I'm afraid the Gemara does not answer the question. The Bavli, however, does explain that even if usually according to men, one thing that gives a bad taste is permitted, here it's different because of all the fermenting, the sourdough is fitting, it causes the food to make other food ferment. You understand? All the extra sourdough in this piece may not help this piece, but it will cause it to become a sourdough for future pieces. And therefore, though the sourdough of Issel caused a blemish in the taste, but however, it gave it the power to cause other things to ferment. Right? Yerushalmi doesn't like that answer. So Yerushalmi remains the question. But that's how the Bavli answers it. Because it's got power to create more sourdoughs down the line. Okay. After Rabbi Yoina finishes the discussion in the view of Rameh, according to Rish Lakish, he discusses Rameh according to the way Rabbi Yochanan understood. Rabbi Yoina asked on the explanation of Rabbi Yochanan and Rameh, Ma ben shavach mizah mizeh. What difference is in the first case in the Mishnah, where the Isra Heta together improved the food? Ma ben pagam mizeh mizeh, the case where the Isra and the Heta blemished it together, where the food is permitted. Why is it that when a person, the food is shavach mizeh mizeh also, if it improved from both of them is forbidden, pagam mizeh mizeh museh, when it blemished from both is permitted? The answers, the truth is Rameh forbids gam tam of gam, he still forbids a bad taste, but this is not as bad as a taste for improvements. He says like this, Ramana, he says, Shevach mizah mizah, if a food improved from Issa and Heta, at Roya, you see the Shvach from the Heta, Kamisha Eina, as if it's not there. You look at the improvement which has come about and you imagine it's not there. If the forbidden one has enough in its own to forbid the food, then the food is forbidden. Even though it didn't bring all the improvement about, but that's enough to cause improvement. However, pagam mizeh mizeh, when the food is blemished by both, at roya es haheta k'misha einai, you look at the taste from the permitted one as if it's not there, and that forbidden one hasn't got the power to forbid the food because he only put in maybe half of the taste or whatever it is. He didn't put enough, to put in to start forbidding the food. Okay. Let's carry on. Halacha ches. Now the Mishnah is talking about cases where things fall in a mixture of various spices of Isur, where each one doesn't really have enough to forbid a heta, but together there is enough. So tavlin shnayim or shlosha shemos. So you have 2 or 3 spices, types of Isur. So you have truma cumin and klag kerem cumin and orlah cumin. Mimin echad, they're all the same type. Let's say peppers, whatever it is. Or 3 types of spices. pepper, fenugreek, kamon, they're all forbidden with the same. They're all truma. Yeah? So either way round. If they fall in a food and give a taste, also the food is forbidden. Or mitzdarfin, and they do join up. So if the spices fall into spices of heta, they join up to forbid the mixture. Rav Shimon says, Shnayim shleisha shemais, 2 or 3 different types of isur. They might all be peppers, but if one is truma, one is this, min echad, shnei minin, or 2 types. Where the Meshem Echad, 2 types of truma, but they are different things. Ein mitzdarfin. Rav Shimon holds they don't join up. You hear that? The other Chachamim said they join up. Rav Shimon holds they don't join up. Yeah. Okay. Nicha, I understand. Shnei Shemos, 2 names of isur mimin echad, like they're both the same type. So peppers, and they join up to forbid a food. But why do they forbid a food? Shnei minin, 2 different types of spices. B'shem echad, even from one name. Why should they forbid? Each spice has got a different taste. Therefore, the taste should be nullified. To each spice, they're different taste. Rabbi Vav Shem Rabbi Lazar, b'minei masika shanu. We're talking about types of spices where their purpose is to sweeten the food in a similar way. Although the taste is not the same, but they join up to forbid the heta, because they're both there to sweeten in a similar way. Now, the Gemara carries on and talks about spices of isur that mix together with heta. Let's talk about Nos and Tam Livgam Mutter first. There are 3 cases where spices of isur give a bad taste of heta, and 2 of them the food is permitted, and 1 the food is forbidden. Let's see. Kol sheha-hedyot. Hedyot is a normal guy. He's not a chef. He's not expert in cooking. And if he tastes some food, he says, look, you know what? This food is perfect. It doesn't need anything. You don't need to add any seasoning. But nafal, and then isur falls in, and now it's blemished. Tavlin, like spices of isur fall in, and now it tastes bad. Zui noisen tam livgam. This is a thing where the bad taste has been caused, and mutter, the food is permitted. We rely on the ordinary guy, and he said, yes, that blemish came from those spices you put in, you've gone and ruined it, and the food is permitted. Va'afinu Omar. Now, even if the Hedyot said, Tavlin ploini yesh b'kedei zu. The ordinary guy said, I think there's that spice in here. And then after that, a forbidden spice fell in, and it's now got bad taste. Zeu noisen tam livgam. This is another example where the thing has caused a bad taste, and mutter, and the food is permitted. Although you could say the blemish came from the spice that was there before, because even before the isur fell in, he could taste that spice, and you might think, but now there's an extra bit of spice, and maybe that's what caused the blemish. We say no, the food remains permitted. But if the chef tastes the food, and he says, you know what? I can tell that spice in there. And now it's got bad taste when the other tavlin of isur falls in. This is a case of isur falling in, giving a bad taste, but also the food is forbidden. So he knew there was the spice there, and now more has fallen in, but we say that's nice and tam also is forbidden. Okay? The reason is because this guy is an expert. He knows what spices are in there. We trust him. That really, there must be enough of that spice. But maybe, had it not been there, maybe it wouldn't have been blemished. It's because of the earlier spice that it's now blemished now. So the tavlin now should forbid the food. There's no blemish coming about because of this tavlin now. It's because of earlier on. Okay. Now Ravo brings the name of Yochanan, another din about the isur of giving a tam in heta, and the Gemara connects it with our Mishnah. Ravo b'shem Rav Yochanan, kol isurin misharin oisan, all isurin, you want to work out how much they forbid, the taste, kilo botel or kilo kaflut. Imagine it's like an onion or like a leek. You look at the isur mixed in as if it was an onion or a leek, and you work out, would you have noticed the taste or not? If you would have noticed the taste, then we say the isur got mixed up, gave taste, and the food is forbidden. Yeah? You work it out based on a leek, whatever. Ad kedun. That's all very well with davar shadaka lishtaya b'batzal v'kaflot, something where you measure the quantity of it that's needed to taste the food as if it's like onion or leek, because it's similar as that. Therefore, if you put the taste in, you work out, was it an onion? Would I have tasted it? But davar shein daka lishtaya b'batzal v'kaflot, something when you don't measure it, the quantity, like food, as if it was an onion. So how do you work out the taste if the taste is noticeable or not? Can you measure? How do you do it? You measure based on onion or not? And even if you can't do it in that way, hakamon b'ma'at mashare. What about kamon? Would they translate kamon there? Which in some ways is similar to an onion. Can you work out based on the kamon? Did they say what kamon is? Kumin, yeah. Do we base it on that? Our Rav Yudan, like in Rav Lazar, didn't explain that the reason of our Mishnah that two spices join up for Isur, b'minei masika shonu. We said, look, they're all providing a sweetness. Yeah? They're coming for the same purpose, and that's why they join up to forbid. But how does it help? Why does it help to join them? But they're two different types. So why do we join them? So he says the reason is because minei masika, when you have sweet foods, you always measure them as if you're putting in an onion. Therefore, they're judged as one type, and they join up. And also, with the other reason that you put them in the food, the taste they put them in the food, you measure it, kilo batzal, kilo kavla. Are they like an onion or a leek? But in other forbidden spices, you don't really treat them for measuring in a food like onions. You do each one in its own right. Therefore, they're not one min. Therefore, you want to check, do they give a taste? You have to treat it as if they're their own kind. Don't treat it, would it an onion? Would it be like an onion? Don't do that. And kamon, the cumin as well, you don't put in the shear like an onion shear. You treat it as its own self, and not like an onion, and not like a leek. Now, another pshat to explain Rabbi Lezer, and we're going to learn Gemara's answer. Ramana le'amakein. He didn't learn the way Rav Yudan explained Rabbi Lezer. And le'kein amar Rabbi Lezer. He says, didn't Rabbi Lezer say the name Rabbi Lezer? Minei masika shanu. The reason Rabbi Lezer is not that the Mishnah is telling you sweet things join up. Not like the way Rav Yudan explained. Oh, they're sweet things. They're doing the same thing. They all join up. No. The reason is, minei masika, they are one. Because their taste is the same, the whole purpose of putting them is the same, they're all sweetening the pot, then you want to work out if they give taste, you can treat it like an onion, kilo kafloids, or another leek, because they are put in the kedera to sweeten it. But when it comes to all other things, other spices, they are not judged like one min with an onion or a leek. They have different tastes. The purpose of putting them is not the same. And since they're not treated as one min with the onion, we don't work out if they give taste. Kilo basel, kilo kafloid, as if it's an onion or a leek. We look at each one in its own right. But the question, how you work out kamon, sricha, I'm afraid that is a question. On the one hand, it's like an onion, because it's also put in a food to sweeten it. On the other hand, it's not just put just to sweeten it like an onion, but it's for other reasons as well. So that is a question as to what we do. Okay. Rabbi B'Shem Rabbi Yochanan, he said all the things that are mentioned about Isur in food, Nosei Tamim, things that give taste in permitted foods, ain't like in Alen. You don't get lashes if you ate the food until you actually eat the intrinsic part of the Isur, right? The intrinsic part of the Isur, the actual texture of the Isur in the mixture. But if you just took it out, you don't get lashes on eating the mixture. You've got to have the actual Isur. You follow. Now meat and milk, which are cooked together, in this case, basically the milk is like on its own. You haven't tasted the actual isur, but if you eat a gazayis of basa b'chalav, you get lashes, right? Surely this goes against what we said before. You have to have the actual isur, whereas here you're not. You're just having the milk. There's no meat in this mixture, but it was cooked together. So, and the Gemara, he asked the question, but Rabbi Yochanan accepted it. He didn't answer it. But the truth is, he did change his mind from what he said. That, if it's just the tam of the thing, you shouldn't get lashes. The Gemara says, Ma'av Kibla. You mean Rabbi Yochanan actually accepted this time and he changed his mind? I mean, we could easily push it away. So the Gemara answers, Rabbi Yochanan, no, he never changed his mind. He didn't bother answering the question. Because sometimes you hear things from someone arguing with you, and you just keep quiet. It's not that you change your mind. It's because I don't feel I need to discuss this. Right? We can push it away easily. Right? That's what he's saying. I don't need to give an answer for such a thing. Okay. Fine. Okay. We will stop here, Rabbi Isai.